Hello out there, and in the interest of adding a little bit extra production value to my videos, I busted out the permanent markers for today's top 10 things you need to know about the Kershaw Natrix. And starting at the top with number 1, guys, it sure is pretty. It is a good looking knife. If nothing else, it is visually very, very appealing, from the lines of the knife to the decorative pivot, which is actually pretty darn functional, to the overall blade shape, and also the G10. The G10, the texture of it is visually just very, very attractive. You know, taking a look at this a little bit up close, you can see a number of different patterns. It all just looks good to the eye. The subframe lock looks good. The clip looks good. Everything visually about this knife, the stonewash, is very, very attractive. All right, I've always really loved this blade shape. This Kershaw 7007 is based off of the 0777 ZT model, and I happen to have the 0770, which looks very similar to that as well. So just really like this design overall. We'll be comparing the ZT a little bit more as we move on. But yeah, just a good looking knife, guys. Just really good and easy on the eyes. So there is definitely that. All right, number 2. It's really lightweight, and we don't really have any type of liners. So the only liners that you're going to have on this knife are the one that holds in the speed safe assisted opening on this side here where my thumb is, and then, you know, also just a little bit holding in the subframe lock. But apart from that, the G10 is really providing the structure of the knife. You know, and usually I was expecting this knife to probably weigh just a little bit more than that ZT that I have, because carbon fiber is going to be lighter than G10. But look at this, at 2.86 ounces, the Natrix is extremely light, and the ZT is a little bit heavier, 3.08. So I'm not sure if that was necessarily the best call to build this knife without liners. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit stronger structure, but it should be just fine for EDC tasks. All right, and continuing to talk about this type of thing, the subframe lock here is really strong. It's sturdy. I mean, it locks up very, very well. So I'm impressed with that, and it's easy to disengage and actuate. So no issues there. And you can see, if I can get in here, maybe you can see how it actually fits into that G10 scale. It fits in pretty seamlessly on the inside. So, I mean, it is a really, really simple part of the structure, I guess. But one thing that was just unusual with this is that, again, on other knives that I've seen with the subframe lock, you generally have just a type of scale that doesn't really flex as much as this might. You know, the carbon fiber on that zero tolerance that this is based off of, the 0777, or let's say the Kershaw Knockout that has aluminum scales. You know, there's not going to be any flex. And here, I mean, you can really push these scales and get a little bit of flex, and it's a little bit odd, to be honest with you. Like I said, for EDC tasks, you're not going to have any issues, I don't think, as far as this not being a strong enough knife. But it's just unusual for me, and maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't handled very many knives like this in the past as far as that goes. So just something that I found interesting. All right, next, blade shape in use. In use, this is a great knife as far as the blade goes. I love the blade shape, like I said. My big concern here was that the fuller up here would maybe create a little bit of drag when you're actually cutting with it, you know, maybe screw things up a little bit. And I beat up a bunch of cardboard and did a lot of cutting with this knife, and it worked out just fine. Didn't have any issues whatsoever. You know, one thing that I really like about this blade shape is that all of the lines sort of converge to make a nice tip, a nice sharp point that you can use to pierce and begin your cuts when you're doing like stuff like cardboard. And you know, as you can see, as the line sweeps down, it takes this plunge at the end to make you that very pronounced tip. And one other knife that does that really well that I've always appreciated is the Spyderco Delica right here. And you can see this Delica has basically one straight line as it goes down the spine, and then that last quarter of an inch, it just plunges and gives you that more pronounced tip, and I really like that. And so the Natrix here does that on a bit of a bigger level, and yeah, it definitely works for trying to use it for basic cutting tasks. Now let's talk about action. And this was probably my first big disappointment when it came to this knife. All right, the action on it is fine, but it's not really what I was expecting. You know, I was expecting a knife like maybe the Dividend or the Pico or the Weston to just be very crisp. And that's fine, and you're not going to really notice just watching the video the way that it feels versus I will bring in both of these knives. Here's the Pico. I mean, the crispness of this and then the crispness of the Dividend. Yeah, it's just on another level. And the Dividend being a USA made knife, maybe you could expect that versus the Natrix, but the Pico is an overseas produced knife, you know, 15, 20 bucks, and it just has that really nice snap that the Natrix is missing. Does it open just fine? Yeah, it does, just fine. But it's not what I was hoping for when it comes to the action. I mean, it's never going to really bother you, you know, it's not going to hurt the performance of the knife, but it's just not as smooth and well put together, I guess, in that area, even though, as you can see, we do have bronze washers in there. It just isn't quite as smooth as I was hoping it would be. All right, and now let's get back to that G10 texture and do a little bit of a close-up on that. All right, so this knife, when I first got it in my hands, I thought it felt great because of all these different texture patterns. You know, it's not just one little bit of G10 here, you know, it's all over the place that you have these different, these different texture patterns that just give it a little bit of difference and helps you get a good feel for the knife when you're holding it in your hand. One thing that I really like and appreciate as far as the clip goes is you have a different pattern underneath the clip versus everywhere else, so it does make it easy to pull in and out of the pocket. It's not quite as grippy, I don't think, right here, or a different kind of grippy, so transitioning it from your pocket or into your pocket will be pretty easy. So very cool there. I really like I said, the look of the G10, but also the feel of it when it is in your hands, especially just on the side of the scales. But that does lead us to another issue. We've got some hot spots on this one, guys. Some pretty bad hot spots. And this knife it's just tough to use for a long period of time. It just is. I mean, there are a number of sharp spots, you know, and one of the initial things that I heard about this knife when people started to get it was that it was just really bad in the hand and that ergonomically it was not on par. And I disagreed, and I was carrying it for a couple days and didn't really understand why people thought that. But then I started doing cut tests with it, and man, it is sharp. There are just spots where it digs into the hand and is extremely uncomfortable. All along here, a lot of sharpness. There's a lot of transition points, as you can see from with that subframe lock, where you'll have pieces of skin that can get squeezed, more so than on a number of other knives. And with how thin the knife is, you get those spots all in about the same area of the hand. So it's a little bit unfortunate, and the clip, although it is a pretty decent clip, does dig in as well. If you're carrying it right-handed or left-handed, regardless, that is going to happen. So that really won't affect you in EDC tasks, like really light stuff. When I carried this knife at work, the 3 or 4 times that I did, never was really that big of an issue, except for, let's say, one time when I was breaking down a bunch of boxes. But for just simple tasks and not prolonged use, this will be just fine. But if you are going to use it heavy, you might have a couple issues. Bringing back the ZT, none of those issues, even though we have a very similar shape. So it's all about the machining and just the materials and the structure, because this is excellent in the hand for a long time. But it's really just all these points where the G10 hits those edges and how that really just gets into the hand when you're squeezing the knife hard. So a little bit unfortunate there. But back to that clip, it's a nice one. Really like the clip. It looks good. It's attractive. Very deep carry. And like I said, with the G10, it does slide in and out of the pocket really easily because of that difference in texture. So you always sort of know where the knife is in your pocket. So I definitely appreciate that. 2 positions, so tip up only, right hand or left hand. No lanyard hole on this knife though. So there is that. So expectations versus reality as we start to wrap up. Guys, I was expecting a knife that I would really love. And for a budget Kershaw, it's fine. And that's really all it's going to be. It's just fine. You know, $37, I don't feel like it's a ripoff, but I don't think that it is any kind of great knife that that I was hoping it would be. You know, when I look at this ZT0770, I see one of my absolute favorite knives, and the opportunity to get a budget version that I could really beat up and have fun with, you know, was very tempting, and I was excited to get it, but it just is not as good as I wanted it to be. You know, when I'm looking at the Kershaw Dividend, which is very, very similarly priced, there is never a circumstance where I would choose to carry the Natrix over the Dividend. It doesn't exist. The Dividend feels way better in the hand, the action is better, the steel is better, like everything about the Dividend I think is better than the Natrix. So if you're looking for a comparison, I mean, you got it. The Natrix is fine, it's going to get the job done, but it's just not really the quality that I was hoping it would be. So, final thoughts and a possible Natrix 2. Regardless of what I just said, I think we should get a Natrix 2 because I think that this knife is probably going to sell really well because people love the design. And I think that even though this might be a $37 like dump off where it doesn't really quite work out the way that I want, I know that I would be personally willing to spend money on this design again if I were to get something that really fit my expectation better. You know, if they took this design and brought it back and made it a USA made quality knife similar to the Knockout and put it in the $50 to $60 range, that would be a home run. That's what they should have done from the get-go, and I know I sound like a broken record because I say this about a lot of budget knives, but that's what they should have done with this design. You know, we have the 0777 and the 0770 right here, and so we have like, you know, the Goldilocks situation where, you know, this might be a little too good and too pricey for a lot of people, and this one, you know, very budget friendly but not quite the quality, and we need that right in the middle design. That's what I think Kershaw should do. That's what I would really, really like to see because, again, there is a market for this excellent, excellent design to create more and more knives. So I would like to see that in the future. Again, guys, not bashing the knife because it is a good design and a pretty decent EDC, but there are just better ones out there, unfortunately. So any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, your take on this knife, definitely let me know down below. I'd be really interested to hear. But that is all I got for you guys. I will talk with you soon. Have a good one.